Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Future of XYZ. Today we are speaking about a very apropos, very in the moment topic, the future of consumer AI. And with us are two of the leads of various programs that drive AI at IBM, which is one of the world's leading hardware, software, et cetera, companies who are driving this change towards AI, data mining, et cetera. And we'll talk a lot about that. With us are Sevgi Koklu, coming to us live and direct from DC en route to Brazil, and Elaine Parr, usually in London, but currently in Amsterdam. Thank you, ladies, both for joining us on Future of XYZ.
Thank you for having us.
Well, Sevgi, you're the general manager of global distribution industries at IBM Tech. You've been with IBM for 22 years. You have both of you have quite pedigreed educational backgrounds and have seen a lot. Elaine, you rebounded a couple of years ago to IBM, but you've also been at PwC and Ernst & Young, EY. So you head up the consumer industries consulting practice at IBM. So I think where we want to start, obviously, when we're speaking about the future of consumer AI, is what is consumer AI, and perhaps how is it different than what we'll just call basic AI or generative AI, which is such a buzzword today.
So I'm going to look to my technical friend, Sevgi, to kick us off. In terms of industry, of course, consumer AI versus generative AI. So in IBM, what we do, we don't call it consumer AI. We call it more business AI. So it's enterprise AI, I would say it. So in that sense, we have 4 principles around enterprise AI, which is open, trusted, targeted, empowering. Targeted because we are not targeting consumer AI. So what we see in the market with the consumers, like individuals playing with ChatGPT, for example, this is really what is called consumer AI. But what we are doing in IBM, focus on enterprises, this is our customers, our own customers. So it's more like B2B type event setting. And here, what we are trying to do is working with them, identifying the right use cases and creating a generative AI set of settings for them based on those use cases. And within the consumer industry itself, Elaine is our consumer industry expert here, and she leads that team. We're focusing on that industry-specific use cases and how we can implement those use cases using technology across the board. So, yeah.
And just before we joined, I was just sharing the kind of juxtaposition. So, generative AI and ChatGPT has done business AI a huge service and a huge disservice. So the service is that CEOs and my mum and everyone in between are talking about generative AI. And that's great because it's really difficult to capture the imagination sometimes with technology. I mean, blockchain did not do that. We've captured the imagination with generative AI. So that's great. The downside is we've captured the imagination with generative AI and everyone wants some of it. And actually, from a business perspective, exactly as Sevgi said, it's super important to think about some of the foundations that are required, the governance, the security, the data quality. So I kind of flip-flop between, let's talk generative AI to, everyone wants to talk generative AI, but it's absolutely a fascinating time to be an IBMer. We've been talking about AI since the 1950s, and finally the world's caught up with us, right? So this is a great time to be where Sevgi and I are.
Well, I love that, and thanks for the background, both of you, because I think one of the things that's interesting to me, and you mentioned IBM's been in this game for a long time. I mean, I would argue that IBM's Watson, is the first branded, and maybe still to this point, other than ChatGPT, but certainly the only branded B2B solution AI that people understood was AI, machine learning, et cetera, before we really came to understand what it is. And obviously that's now become a platform, and you now have, Watson X.ai and various other solutions there. But I think coming back to just generically, it's interesting, Sevgi, you call it enterprise AI or something other than consumer AI. But when I think about the application cases, even coming out of a company such as IBM, you mentioned, Elaine, before, what are the use cases? And I know you were just, with someone that was in deep luxury retail. I mean, the question here is, we're all talking about this, but in fact, what are the use cases? What topic areas does AI today address? What sectors, can it really, really help? And where are you guys playing?
So I love this journey of exploration, because you think Gen AI and you immediately start to think of the more creative areas of marketing and marketing messages, and you kind of get stuck in that kind of marketing space. But in truth, if you step back, there are lots of other ways that AI and Gen AI add value, and some of them are not in the least bit exciting. So code creation or persona creation. So say, for example, we are doing a big transformation at a large CPG company, and they want to think about the different personas that they serve, both as employees and then as customers and consumers. Gen AI can turn those personas around accurately within literally seconds. Now, it's not particularly exciting. It's not going to change the world, but that's a perfectly good, very simple use case. Reporting. So all of our clients have to do statutory reporting, tax reporting, ESG reporting. Every place and every stakeholder and everywhere they need to do that reporting is a different format with different data. You can use AI and Gen AI to do that. Now, that's not particularly sexy or exciting, but as you run...
But it's helpful.
Yes, but as you run through the value chain, literally kind of nose to tail of a business, we can see different uses, whether it's in talent processes, customer service, generating code, populating boring reports. But you've got to kind of unhook your brain and think about the art of the possible.
Well, I love that head to tail or nose to tail, as they say in like butchery and animal eating. It's like, it's your customer experience because you understand the customer better. It's your customer service. It's your HR. It's your operational efficiencies. It's all of that, right? Because it's a data plug. It's scraping data and then building upon that. What I think is interesting, however, I mean, you're suggesting that AI already touches everything. What is the specific potential of it going forward? I mean, and specifically in terms of kind of these consumer enhancements to businesses.
Yeah, so just I take this in terms of just wrapping up what Elaine was alluding to. There are three categories actually, and these are the starting points with IBM when it comes to implementation for generative AI. Is talent, customer service, and app modernization. Talent is all about this improvement in HR, and we're already seeing this 40% in our own actually implementation in IBM within IBM. Customer service is contact center, but this is really the cases contained by conversational AI. This is above and beyond what we were seeing in the market today with chatbots and everything. And then app modernization, again, Elaine mentioned about co-creating the code, co-piloting, code creation, playbook creations, and things like that. So these are the three major categories right now is IBM we're focusing on. But to your question, Lisa, in terms of the use cases, what is the art of the possible, especially with the consumer industry itself? Again, it starts with customer experience. It's all about customer, right? How do we improve our commerce, marketing, customer care? These are the three categories under customer experience. And then the next topic for us from an industry perspective that is important is supply chain and operations. How do we do better merchandising? Supply chain, how do we do better forecasting? Yes, we've been doing a lot of AI in terms of our forecasting, but what is next here? How do we apply generative AI foundational models so we can much, much better forecast? And trade promotions, for example, is a great example. We are actually working on this with generative AI concept.
And dynamic pricing, I'm sure, too.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got it. And then new product development, right? The product inspiration design, how do we incorporate the client feedback directly into the product design as we do it? And generative AI is a great tool for that. These are really awesome use cases. and across the board enterprise modernization, right? The finance, we talked about HR, but how about finance? How about legal? How about IT ops and security? We're seeing IT security a lot also in our use cases when we talk with the customers too. So there's a lot more to do there. Yeah, we start with the three main areas that I mentioned earlier, but from a consumer industry perspective, we have a lot more.
You have a lot more, and you talked about security, so you've opened yourself up, and I heard the pillars of, IBM specifically before, but I mean, I was planning on asking this later, but we just talked about it. I mean, I think one of the things that for me personally, and I'm sure for many people, I mean, the data access and what is being mined is a little frightening because they know everything, how they know everything, and if who knows everything gets hacked by someone who wants to know more or everything, how does in a very fast changing world, Elaine, you were saying about this conversation you had before you just started recording, about the foundations. We have to have foundations in place. And the same thing is true for anything we've done. We're moving light speed ahead, but is the foundation in place? And specifically as concerns security, yes, AI can help with security, but AI is also part of the problem, right? So how are we addressing that as we look towards the future of AI, where this is only going to grow and become more embedded within corporations and our own daily lives?
Yeah, if I may take this, Elaine, please add to that. So as I mentioned at the very beginning of the call, there are 4 principles for generative AI as part of IBM's, right? Open, trusted, targeted, and empowering. So when we say trusted, it is the most important, to me, it's the most important thing that will differentiate other companies because we have this platform, as you mentioned, What's the Next platform, but within What's the Next, there's What's the Next .governance. That platform provides the trustiness all about, and I don't want to go to the technical details around it, but it's an enabling platform to have that trusted generative AI function. Because that's our responsibility, right? As IBM and other companies the same way. That's why the current administration also bringing different parties together. I think they were here last week talking about this. But it is very critical to be able to create that platform where it's trusted. And we have that within our platform actually embedded into it and to implement that to make sure those type of issues won't happen.
And Elaine, I just want to refocus the question for a second. I'm sure you have things to add, but if we think outside of IBM, because IBM obviously is a behemoth and has been doing this for a very long time, but a lot of companies haven't. A lot of companies smaller companies are using AI, but they can't afford an IBM solution, for instance. So as AI gets more and more embedded into the nose to tail of the business enterprise and the functionality, how can companies create this kind of transparency and confidence, really? I mean, we talk about trust, but it's confidence. And who's responsible really for that in the world as we look ahead towards the future of consumer AI?
Yeah, and funnily enough, over coffee earlier, we were talking about some of the horror stories we see when there isn't that control, there isn't that governance, there isn't that security, and quite a lot of that actually emerged through COVID. So controls and governance and security have to be part of the journey that any business goes on with generative AI. This is not my mum using ChatGPT to say, should I deal with the glut of plums I've got? This is our sacred corporate data. It could be M&A data. It's going to be all our financial data. It's going to be employee data. It's going to be customer data. This is not a place for amateurs. This is not a place without governance. And I don't see many of the big clients that we work with entering into this lightly, if I'm honest. I really don't, So it's not my mum looking for plum recipes.
But I mean, the funny thing about the plum example with your mom, right, is that data though is, however, open source and can be mined by anyone, right? And so there is actually this very interesting kind of argument as companies, for instance, continue to grow and want to integrate this more. The speed of change is just rapid as we talk about this foundations, right? So we know that this is going to get increasingly embedded both individually as well as corporately. And you're right, the corporate side has more guardrails in place. They have more walls, but they also, it's more one could argue is certainly more important to national security, corporate security, et cetera. But like, how does this get managed? I mean, from the side of AI, how do we? I mean, there's lots of talk about AI running away and like taking over the world, right? I mean, there is this, that there's enough data, that at that point happens. As we think about the future of consumer AI, I mean, dynamic pricing is a perfect example for it. How does it serve us instead of, not? I mean, I guess it serves corporate profits. I get that, but like, how does it serve us as human beings, as a species?
So it's really interesting, this, because when people talk AI and Gen AI, they immediately think about efficiencies, about cost cutting, about losing jobs and all of that stuff. And I see there's a much higher order conversation to be had. So yes, of course, there's efficiencies. Of course, rather than having a human being answer the phone and verify who you are and tell you what time stores are open, there's efficiencies. You can cut out those stages. But I think the higher order benefits of where this is going, so the effectiveness, the risk mitigation, the quality of our work, and then the experience for all of us from AI and generative AI. Why should an employee get on a plane, use an app on their phone, park their car, use an app on their phone, do their banking, use an app on their phone, and then walk into their corporation and have an experience that's 30 years old tech? So of course we need to mitigate the risks. Of course we need to put the governance around this. But once we've done that, we need to then start to think about the higher order benefits that this will bring. And that's the exciting stuff. AI and ESG, AI and employee experience, AI and risk mitigation, not just AI and scary stories about losing jobs and cost cutting and data running away with itself. And most of my clients are a little bit nervous and super excited, I think. And the little bit nervous is important, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, you wrote in a post that you put up recently about a study at the IBM Institute for Business Values that 42% of retail CEOs, are banking on AI technologies like, deep learning, generative AI, et cetera, machine learning to drive revenue. I think that there are risks in this. That's my personal opinion. But how do we know that AI isn't just the next shiny object? And I think, Sevgi, your work is, very, very much determining this. I mean, there are lots of buzzwords that happen. There's lots of technology that, comes and goes. And of course, it's iterative. I get that. But how do we know that this isn't just the next shiny object that CEOs have to use, because otherwise they look like fools?
So actually, this is this is a good one. So we are doing a lot of what we call MVPs or POCs with our customers as we speak, because they are very
proof of concept.
Yeah, proof of concept or minimum viable product. So it depends on what you're trying to do with each customer. But the purpose of doing it is because there's so much word going on. They want to, and we want to see it in real life. We're talking about use cases. We're talking about applying certain business requirements, use cases into generative AI. Let's see it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's demo it and see how it works and how it is different from what we're doing. So I would say almost 90% of my customers, they are either doing an MVP or they're in the process of finalizing their use case definitions. That's a big number. And I've been around this business for a while, and I never seen this much of an interest in this short time frame in any other technology that we developed. So that tells something.
Absolutely. And we're getting towards the end, but I have one more question before I ask the final question, which is always the same question on all future of XYZs. But the question interim is obviously, I mean, I think about blockchain as an example. It is extraordinarily energy heavy, right? I mean, so much of our technology is actually fueling the climate crisis in many ways. You guys just recently released some research that I thought was interesting, and it actually goes above my head. So I'd love just to talk about it for a second, which is talking about, analog AI chips that can handle natural language processing, right? And basic AI tasks. with much more greater energy efficiency. I think it's like 14 times the energy efficiency of the next best. I didn't realize that IBM built chips, so I might be wrong, or maybe that's your technology, but obviously you guys also build chips. But what is, as you just said, 90% of your clientele is actually going after this technology. How do we, as we go towards the future of consumer AI, with this is, more and more embedded in reality, how do we mitigate the negative externalities, let's call it, especially on the planet?
Now, I wasn't expecting you to talk about chip manufacture either. So IBM is a super interesting company, $20 billion consulting business, $40 billion technology company, but then underpinned by a massive research organization. And that research organization attracts $8 billion worth of funding. And it's doing exactly that. It's looking at future-facing issues. So sustainability, what is the future chip design that is lower energy? How are we going to build green IT into our solutions? And then you really start to get to the mind-blowing stuff, Lisa, around quantum and this kind of stuff. But it kind of goes hand in hand. You can't develop a technology and then not be mindful of its impact on the planet. So green IT, green technology is super important. You can't be blind to any of the consequences of where we're taking our innovations.
That's great.
No, so just to add to that, it's a responsible IT, responsible business, not just for IBM, for all of the technology firms out there and all of the businesses, actually, not just the technology firms. I think whatever we do, we have to consider what are the impacts of what we're doing. So bringing different companies together like a consortium and discussing this, getting aligned, creating that governance, I think is key. And it's happening. It's happening with the administration. It's happening informally with different companies as well. So we all live in this planet and we're all human beings here, and we want to do the right thing and we want to do the responsible thing for our future generations as well. So I believe in that, and I believe with the right communication, open communication and governance, we should be able to do this properly.
That's great.
Well, Lisa, next time we have one of these sessions, we should do it from the IBM Watson labs. You can see the banks of quantum computers going, you can see chips being made. I can only just about understand.
I'm taking you up on this, Elaine. Don't dangle things like that. I can't wait. Well, as a final question, and I'm going to let you guys tag team this one, so you guys can decide who wants each one. The last question always is, what do you see as the future for consumer AI, as we've talked about it, in the next, 5 to 10 years? And what's your greatest hope for it in the next 20?
Wow. So I hope we see some democratization of technology. So doesn't really matter what the technology is. It doesn't really matter what's under the hood. It's all about adding value to the user experience. So being able to better serve our customers, being able to drive more efficient processes, almost the technology just becomes an invisible enabler. And all of us can use the tech, most of us, without even realizing that we are. And a lot of, if I look around my clients now, Lisa, a lot of very smart people spend a lot of time doing stuff that is really dull and really boring and cannot be adding value to much. And I want that stuff to go away, and AI and Gen AI can make that happen. So we turn up and our day job is more rewarding, more satisfying, more fun, and hopefully less hours.
No, I agree with what Elaine said. It's really more technology enabling everything, I would say, with consumer AI, both in consumer as well as in enterprises, right? And we will see it making our life easier, and in a lot of different aspects. And then next 20 years, it's hard to gauge next 20 years. So but a lot more automation, a lot more AI embedded into our life, embedded into the way we live. That's how I see it. We're not going to be talking about this is different, this is an MVP anymore, right? It's going to be integral part of how we live. So.
Elaine, Parr, and Sevgi Koklu, thank you both of IBM. Thank you for joining us for the future of consumer AI. It's been an enlightening conversation. Obviously, we only scratched the surface in these calls, especially on a topic that's quite as complex. But I look forward to another conversation in the future. And thank you again for joining us on Future of XYZ today.
Thank you. We will see you in the Watson Labs next.
I cannot wait for that. Thank you. And for everyone watching and listening, make sure that you check us out wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. You can also find us with our presenting partner, Rhode Island PBS, at ripbs.org/XYZ to watch the videos of these, and follow Future of XYZ on Instagram, or visit future-of.xyz if you want to learn more or nominate yourself or someone else as a guest. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time. Again, ladies from IBM, Sevgi Koklu and Elaine Parr, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.